When I was 11, my mother was deployed to Iraq as a nurse in the United States Army.
At 17, I had the privilege of enlisting in the United States Army.
But when she returned, she was different. Every task was a marathon, and she was always exhausted, overworked, and slower than the quick-witted mom I had known all my life. For months, we went doctor to doctor, and instead of a diagnosis, we faced unwarranted questions of sanity and a lack of empathy, which was traumatic in itself.
Enlisting gave me the opportunity to develop bonds that would last a lifetime, but it also opened my eyes to the struggles that exist behind the uniform of each and every soldier that are real, raw, and oftentimes unaddressed due to that fear of judgment.
After many hospital visits, we finally received the diagnosis that my mother has a traumatic brain injury. Sure, the diagnosis was in some ways almost a relief, almost like telling my mom that it wasn't all in her head, but what was next?
I have long resonated with that fear of judgment. I knew that I was gay, but kept it a secret, as in some sort of survival mode. The idea of having to come out is one that I believe is forced upon us by society, when really, aren't we all just human beings?
6 months went by without available or clear-cut treatment options, until one day my mom cried. She said, "I feel like I'm 10 seconds behind every conversation, and I'm always playing catch-up."
As my passion for helping others grew, I quickly learned that being human wasn't always enough. Challenges associated with how I and we were perceived oftentimes snuck up on my own mental health.
Mental health snuck up on my mom, and it sneaks up on all of us.
Now, let me ask you all something. During the COVID-19 pandemic, who here felt lonely? Anxious? Or just out of your mind?
Us too. Over the past 2 years, the world as a whole has seen a dramatic increase in mental illness as a result of compounding stress and isolation from COVID-19. Every 1 in 5 adults in the United States experience mental illness, and according to the National Survey on Drug Use and Health, 60% are left untreated. Now, the mental health crisis is not only a health concern, but like the virus, it is also an economic concern. According to the National Alliance on Mental Illness, mental illnesses cost $100 billion a year in lost productivity. The sheer number of these costs and of silently suffering adults and youth alike highlights the crucial need for a solution. That's why Brian and I decided to try and address the mental health crisis with the one thing that kept us all together through this incredibly tough period of isolation: technology.
Technology, like any tool, can have many negatives when used irresponsibly. That's why Lucy and I decided to find a way to use this powerful tool for the betterment of each and every individual we interacted with. We absolutely kind of took into consideration all of the ways that we can bring technology together. We understand that technology is a vague term. It can mean anything from streaming, gaming, social media, or simply just surfing the web. One technological avenue that we leaped into in an attempt to address the mental health crisis was music.
Music could be a common solution for everyday issues. When I think back to my mother's experience, I recognize firsthand that trauma manifests itself uniquely in each person. And we cannot treat trauma simply by understanding its manifestation. Post-traumatic stress disorder is one of the only psychiatric and psychological disorders that has one clear onset event: the traumatic incident itself. Now for me, this shouts opportunity. We can and should incorporate preventative measures as soon as possible following a traumatic incident to counteract the development of a trauma disorder. Neuroplasticity is the idea that the brain can change itself, and it showcases the potential for customized musical associations to change individual synapses or entire cortical networks. This cortical rewiring could offer an explanation and a potential solution to the interfering symptoms of PTSD, and it has the ability to alter emotional responses to trauma triggers. This shows us that music has the potential to combat the relationship between thanatosonics and PTSD. Brian and I worked closely with community heroes like ICU nurses, military personnel, and medical technicians working during the pandemic to further investigate this relationship. We provided these warriors with a variety of soundscapes curated to combat auditory triggers, to reduce stress and anxiety, and hypothetically, to prevent a trauma occurrence from developing into a trauma disorder. What we found was extraordinary. 82% of our 200-person test group were using the soundscapes daily. I want to highlight that these workers were not just your average person. They were COVID-19 ICU nurses, faced with illness, death, and isolation, with no means to human connection through 3 layers of personal protective equipment. 75% of them were using our soundscapes immediately following a traumatic incident or event. Depressive symptoms and post-traumatic stress were down on an average of 14% among our heroes after only 6 weeks of using the soundscapes. Our participants demonstrated that music has the potential to cope with trauma. Technology not only provided all of us with a means of maintaining contact with our loved ones during the pandemic, but it allowed Brian and I to provide that helpful resource. So, where else can we use technology to help or to empower others?
Well, over the course of the COVID-19 pandemic, we took a step back and recognized that we tackle a majority of the critical parts of life's challenges with technology, from the COVID-19 pandemic to the horrific fires that have ripped through tens of thousands of homes. I like to think of life like a deck of cards, in which we were dealt a bad hand over the past 2 years. Although luck was definitely not on our side, the power of collaboration and technological innovation most certainly was. In record-breaking time, we were able to develop powerful vaccines against COVID-19, expand our usage of solar panels, electric vehicles, and continue to promote legislation that expands the usage of these technological innovations. With technology, the world is truly at our fingertips, but it's up to our creativity to connect our mental health needs to these innovations. With the recent expansion of Web3 and the development of NFTs, Lucy and I decided to join these early-stage crypto movements in an attempt to continue creating safe communities for underserved groups. With the power of the metaverse, we can continue to bring unheard voices together, provide security through that anonymity, and amplify their voices. This sense of security is exactly similar to what I have witnessed during my time in the military. If there was a way for individuals to discuss how they are truly feeling without that fear of judgment, there would be an influx of community empowerment based on similar struggles. As Web3 and other platforms continue to grow, I believe that by preserving the desired anonymity that we see in the Web3 and military communities, combined with a powerful technological healing resource, like an app, this is the key to creating actual change in the mental health space, protecting one's identity, but also providing a solution that is different and brings communities together. Now that's the missing piece.
Could this missing piece be solved with music? Could it be leading-edge technologies like artificial intelligence? Could it be providing a safe space for others to share? Really, Brian and I think that it's a combination of all 3.
Whether it be working on, developing a multitude of that complex AI, or conducting years of research, filling in this missing piece is the key to the escalating need for mental health assistance. When we saw TikTok take off, we saw individuals gain such fast traction who were spreading awareness about chronic illness, being gay, and the hardships that came with it. Nurses' first-person perspectives of the unknowns of COVID-19, and all that were able to make it onto the global For You page of this social media app, all with an algorithm built out by TikTok. Now, I want you to think of mental health apps for a second. Imagine if we were able to create a single platform that not only helped reduce severe symptoms of mental illness, but allowed users to discuss their hardships and talk about the shortcomings of mental health policy. Now, I want you to all think and imagine the same for spreading awareness about gun violence, climate change. You all know that list goes on. If we continue to utilize the powers behind technology and not ignore it, especially in the mental health space, we have the potential of doing a whole lot more than just helping others.
And the step beyond helping others is empowering others. The success of our project did not end with the success of our soundscapes. Brian and I wanted to do more than provide therapeutic audioscapes to suffering heroes. So we took our shared knowledge and research and technology to educate. We brought together community heroes, outspoken activists, and influential experts working in the intersection of mental health care, technology, and social impact to create a diverse collection of educational pieces on a single platform. Our goal is to provide accessible information to empower others and to work directly in the communities that need it the most. For us, these communities of focus are soldiers and veterans, LGBTQ+, BIPOC, and you all know that list goes on too. Serving these communities is done best through data-driven technologies powered by research. Although research often lacks data on marginalized communities. And when there is accessible data, what the hell are we doing with it? The answer is almost nothing. It has been found that 85% of health-focused research is completely wasted. Our mission is to change this stereotype and to illustrate that research is an opportunity to educate, to empower, and to encourage communities to live healthier, happier, and stronger through knowledge. We must consider underserved communities when we experiment with unique solutions to problems as big as the mental health crisis. Because when you concentrate on collecting health-focused data from diverse populations, I promise you, it will be a catalyst for social impact.
So, how many of you in here have been told that what you're working to achieve is impossible? Or simply that you can't? When we think of the term social impact, it's important to recognize that there is more to it than just affecting a group of people based on what you do or don't. Your ability to alter the way others think and inspire those around you to act is the true test to your lasting impact that you will have on a community. By using your voices, we can continue to address the social injustices and gaps that exist in these underserved groups. These inequities contribute to the increased need for a platform for those that are able to serve as the social glue for all of the social movements you all have witnessed on TV for the past 2 years. With all of the innovation across all industries today, technology still, time and time again, continues to break the barriers of communication. When we see a lack of resources or a mistreatment of others, we can use the power of technology to bring these unheard voices together, allow others to speak out, and allow these social movements to continue forming. As we continue to think about global communication, and it's exponentially growing, like the recent expansion of the metaverse, or what we now call it at least, the possibilities of sounding the alarm on certain crises and collaborating with others to tackle what some have deemed impossible just transformed from a once far-thought ambition into a reality.
Now, Brian, you mentioned communication growing globally, and the world of possibilities that is also growing with modern technological advances. So with innovative solutions to our world's most pressing issues on the rise, we must ask ourselves, what am I doing to contribute? Which issue takes priority for you? For me, it's addressing the trauma pandemic. My mother's traumatic brain injury went months untreated, until one day, a doctor listened with care and intent to her symptoms and set up an appointment with an audiologist. I skipped school that day, and we went to the appointment together. The audiologist brought out a pair of hearing aids. My mom put them on and asked me to say something. I said, "How's your hearing?" To my surprise, she burst into tears, and she said, "I'm hearing the now." From that moment on, things continued to improve. We would practice multiplication tables together on my way to middle school, and she got quicker and quicker. I witnessed firsthand through my mother's experience the power of neuroplasticity. And today, she's stronger and sharper mentally than she's ever been. You see, my mom's diagnosis was hard to treat because brains are tricky. And there is still so much that we do not know. But it takes a good listener and mutual trust to reveal that underlying impairment and to find a solution. Trusting that someone out there would have a solution was the best hope that anyone could give me or my mom.
You see, that trust is the real key to empowerment. When you are able to combine access and knowledge into forming these powerful social movements built off of that trust, you will see change happen almost instantly. Being globally aware is the first step. So I encourage you all to stand out by continuing to raise questions. Speak your mind, and you will inadvertently create inclusivity in all of your missions of change.
Our mission of change begins with two key components: listening to individual concerns and personalizing their path to recovery, and providing security and power driven by technology. With these key building blocks in mind, Brian and I applied our expertise to create a holistic platform that puts users in charge of their own mental health care. We used our passions to build a mobile application that is user-focused, research-driven, and trauma-informed. We are research-based among less than 10% of mental health applications on the market, and we strive to use our passions cohesively to provide autonomy when it comes to coping and care.
Passion goes a long way. And if you can guide what some may characterize as the passion train, like we had to, you can take what you know, which is oftentimes undervalued, and use it to your advantage. In order to be a change agent, in anything you do, you must avoid being performative by choosing the unknown over stability. So be bold and become the story that others talk about when they say, hey, this person was able to do something because you all were the one to achieve it.
After all, discomfort is the first step to growth. So be willing to not know. It is an opportunity to discover.
Lucy and I are advocates for the LGBTQ community, soldiers, and leaders in the startup space. And we want to share that it is indeed possible. We absolutely have a long way to go still.
But Brian and I have taken the first steps. We have braved the uncomfortable to continue increasing the impact of social change in the accessibility of trauma-informed care and personalized technology.
So I encourage you all to share your stories and remain unstoppable. My name is Brian Femminella.
And I am Lucy Schafer.
Thank you for listening.